stay put, and we'll be with you shortly. Welcome everyone to our Practice Builders webinar series. My name is Gillian and I'll be co-conducting today's webinar in which we will be showcasing our newest technology solution, myPracticeReputation. This will help protect and promote you and your associates' online practice reputation. Before we get started, I would like to quickly address a few items regarding this webinar. All attendees will be muted, so if you have a question during the presentation, feel free to type it into your chat box and we'll address it during the Q&A session at the end. Also, once the webinar has concluded, every registrant will receive a copy of the PowerPoint slides as well as a recorded version with audio. For those of you who are not familiar with Practice Builders, I would like to offer a very brief background on who we are. We have been providing practice success solutions for over 30 years, working exclusively with private healthcare practices. We provide an array of comprehensive products and services ranging from e-media solutions, staff training, branding, print collateral, and multimedia advertising, all to help you reach your practice goals. I'd like to take this moment now to introduce our presenter for this afternoon, John McCumber. John has a breadth of experience with technology solutions related to healthcare marketing, so I'm very pleased to have him present today. So I'd like to take a moment to hand it over to you, John. Hello, John, are you there?
Thank you. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for being on the webinar today. I hope that you get a lot out of it, and I'm going to speak about something that obviously is very near and dear to my heart, and I hope that you find your ability to really be more proactive about your reputation through the conversation that we start today coming through. So essentially we're going to talk about just a couple of different things. We're going to talk about, as a result of the proliferation of these review sites, how the doctor-patient relationship is changing dramatically. And then we're going to talk about, kind of the status quo. So if you decide that, okay, you've got a lot of information, but you decide to do nothing, really, what is the cost of making that decision? Then very briefly, I'm going to show you what our solution, our technology solution called myPracticeReputation does, how it has some very powerful parallel benefits. I'll go into how it works, and then I will go through and talk about how we can help you with your own reputation score. So without further ado, in case you weren't aware, if you are a provider or a doctor or dentist of some sort, you already are listed on about 100 different review sites that are out there. just by virtue of the fact that you have an MPI number, you're already listed. And on most of these sites, and you're probably familiar with some of the names that are up here like Google and Yelp and Vitals and some of these others, but on most of these sites, the reviews that are left and are, more importantly, that are read by prospective patients, those reviews that are left largely are anonymous. But even if we did know who they were, and if we could prove that it was a patient, and let's say that on that off chance that it is a patient and they wrote something that is wildly inaccurate, unfortunately, because of HIPAA compliance and privacy laws, you're completely prevented from responding in kind. And if you really think about the power that is in the hands of the patient as the new publisher, and think about it, just like all of us are sitting in front of computers right now, we can go onto your profile on a dozen or more different sites or anyone else's, and we can write anything we want. We can hit publish, and now we are influencing your very livelihood. Again, and there's no recourse against the person that is able to write this. So that creates a tremendous imbalance in terms of power to a select few. And so it is absolutely, and you think about this a little bit further. When someone goes online and they write a review about you, they are, and they are in essence defining who you are for the people that need your services. And so what I want to spend the rest of our time talking about is how you can start to be proactive to protect really what matters most, which is your own name. And so that's why you've got to be, you have to be proactive, because if you're not, if you just say, you know what, I'm a great doctor, I treat my patients fantastically, I do the best that I can, and I think that should be good enough. In fact, I had someone just about an hour ago tell me that, and that's great, and that's exactly what you do, and that's why you're trained, and that's why you're as effective as you are. But keep in mind that that reality that you know and you experience and your patients experience in your office every day, that's not necessarily the perception that's left online. And so in some cases, you'll see that you actually have no reviews, and you probably do. You probably don't have any reviews on many of those 100 sites. You don't have to. You can only have just a very few reviews on 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 review sites and have a dramatic impact on your practice, both for good and for bad. And so if you do have poor reviews, again, that's the first impression that someone is making. And so in the worst part about, the most insidious part about what's happening with review sites is when you lose a patient as a result of a negative review that they read, there's no alarm bells that go off. There's no warning that says, hey, I just lost a lifetime value of a patient, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $100,000. There's no alarm. There's no notice. It's just silence. So that's why you have to err on the side of caution to make sure that you are being proactive. And here, and just to hit the point home, it's like, John, okay, prove this to me. Well, the very first research was done last year and was published on the screen that you can see now in Physicians Practice. Basically, they started to looking at trends over time and what is the impact of these review sites. And the research that was published last year essentially said that in less than 1 year's time, and keep in mind this is last year, the way patients are looking for doctors has changed dramatically. 80% of your patients will screen you on Google. And I'm going to show you in just a few minutes an example of 2 different providers, both in the same city, both do the same thing. And I'm going to show you a before and after picture of someone that doesn't have a reputation online and someone that does. And the physical appearance of Google and the impression that is made changes. It's like night and day. The pages don't even look, they physically don't even look the same. And this isn't going away. I've also had some doctors who have been very, very blunt and honest and say, you know what, I don't even want to read. It shudder the thought of thinking of looking myself up online. Well, and while I appreciate that honesty, you've got to address this now, more so now than ever, because this isn't going anywhere. The growth, as you can see on the slide, the growth in not only providers but in the number of reviews being written is growing, and it will always be a part of your practice for the rest of your career. And believe me when I say that the anonymous reviews can have, anonymous and unknown reviews can have a tremendous impact on your practice. In fact, these are two doctors I personally know very well. Neither one of them at the time I brought it to their attention were aware of these reviews. The one that's on the right, the Yelp review, is about a foot doctor in the Midwest where you don't even have to read it. It essentially said that she operated on the wrong foot. Now, this never happened. It flat out did not happen. This is a complete falsehood, and yet it was there on the most popular review site in the world for the whole world to see. The one that's on the left, I kind of take personally. It's not the worst review I've ever read, but it's written about my doctor that I've gone to for over 13 years. All 4 of my children have gone to see this man. I literally owe him years of my life to the counsel and the treatment that he's given me, and yet when I looked him up, that was the only review that I found about him. Now, fortunately, that has changed, but again, neither one of them were aware that these reviews were out there, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that they lost patients as a result of that. So if you think that, again, the reviews come up, and when they're up there, nobody tells you they're there. And that's one of the things that we help you with myPractice Reputation, is be aware of what's being said about you. And, you know, and on some of the review sites, you do have the ability to respond to what a patient writes. In fact, Yelp is one of those sites. You can create an account on Yelp, and you can claim it for your practice, and you can actually respond. And here is an example of everything you should never do, because this is a review that was written about a dentist in Southern California. Essentially, the patient, you know, went on in excruciating detail about all the things that had transpired, and this very highly respected, highly sought after doctor decided to respond. And so I've highlighted and circled what he did wrong. He actually acknowledged that this was his patient, and he violated HIPAA compliance as a result, and said not only that, but she also has herpes. So taking matters into your own hands, while, you know, I'm sure that he did this with all the right intentions, you actually can do more harm than good. And that being said, let me show you a better way that you can really take ownership and really reflect the reality that you experience and your patients experience every day. And so what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about is our solution that we've developed here at Practice Builders called myPractice Reputation. It's a technology solution that I'll walk through very briefly with you, and it essentially allows you the ability to do 2 things at the same time. One is it gives you the ability to protect the practice by mitigating negative reviews. Let me be upfront and tell you that if you're looking for a solution that can actually erase the reviews from being online, you won't find it. These sites have the ability, and they have the right, and it's their First Amendment privilege to have these sites online. But I'm going to show you how to overwhelm. I don't even care how many negative reviews you might have. I can show you in just a few minutes with ease how you can overwhelm that and really be in control about what's being said about you. And the best part about this is, think about this for a second. I told you on the very first slide that you're already listed on about 100 different review sites. You don't even know what those are, but they do exist, and you didn't pay to be on any of them. You can use these review sites, as I will argue, the single most powerful tool you could possibly imagine to expand the outreach and the influence and message about how great your practice is and the wonderful work that you do. And so I'll show you how we can do that here in just a second. So what our solution does, myPractice Reputation, is I'll show you in a second. It gives you the ability to monitor what's being said all the time. In fact, one of the things that we'll offer for you at the end of this webinar is the ability to have to take a look at what's being said, and no charge whatsoever. So you're able to monitor what's being said all the time. And also in just a second, I'm actually going to show you how this solution interacts with your patients, where you're able to ask patients to write reviews on your behalf and do so in a way that you're going to be very comfortable with. Those reviews, when they're written by the patients, then come into our software, where you and your staff will be able to pick and choose which reviews you believe represent the practice. And then you'll be able to take the positive ones that match the tone and match the message that you want, and have those show up across all the major review sites so as to reflect the truth of the matter and build the practice. You'll be very excited at the ease with which you can start changing your reality online. And so what our solution allows you to do is monitor all the review sites at all times. I'm going to very easily capture feedback from every patient you see. This will help you identify those patients that are less than satisfied, and we give you several ways to do that. And let's be honest with ourselves. You are in a service industry. You deal with the public. You don't pick any of your patients. They all pick you. So it is perfectly normal, and it stands to reason that from time to time patients are going to be upset. There's nothing wrong with that in and of itself. And if we can give those same patients the ability to express their frustrations or their misunderstandings, which is what it is in many cases, have have their thoughts, their wishes, and their concerns come through myPracticeReputation to you, you can respond to those in such a way that you can be an advocate for the patient instead of the adversarial relationship that we saw a few minutes ago. And by getting consistent feedback from the cross-section of your patient base, you're going to be able to better identify things that your patients pick up on as they interact with you and your staff, and you'll be better poised to improve the infrastructure of the practice and improve patient satisfaction and engagement moving forward. But the reality is, and that's what we're trying to capture. The reality is that you're great at what you do. By and large, your patients love you, and if we could just make it really, really simple, where they would want to share that, they will. And I'll show you how easy that is in just a minute. And not only that, but we can help not only share the positive reviews, but if there are certain treatments, if there are certain services that you really want to highlight, in just a second, I'll show you how you can almost ensure that stories about that treatment or that service appear at the very top of the rating sites across the board from top to bottom. And so how do we get feedback? Well, we do it in a number of different ways. We can have patients fill out what's called a quality assessment form. It's a paper form that's done in the office. It's a HIPAA-compliant document. We also can have the system send an email out to patients, and increasingly, we are having practices start using digital devices in the office. They can be an iPad, they can be a tablet, they can be a little laptop computer or a kiosk. It depends on what is appropriate, and I can work with you to find what works best given the workflow and given and create a protocol within your own office. So something that's not intrusive, something that does not add any extra man hours to your staff or overhead whatsoever, but really helps you improve the practice and shows your patients at the end of the day you really value them and you really care what they think. So the quality assessment form, again, is a HIPAA-compliant document. It's very simple for the patients, and I can show you how we can transform that into a digital review. The patient feedback request is we simply enter in the patient's first name, last name, and email address. We'll send them out an email that says, that asks them to complete a survey. And one of the reasons, and some of you probably have used patient satisfaction surveys from time to time, or perhaps maybe even you've actually emailed or asked or given patients a piece of paper or a slip or something where they can go directly to the review sites. The reason that myPracticeReputation is so successful and so much more successful than the other methods that I just spoke about is that we give the patients one thing to do. We don't ask them to look up any sites. We don't ask them even to type in your name. All we ask them to do is open up their inbox or take a couple of minutes on an iPad in the office. One of the things that you'll be able to do, and I'll actually show you a live example in just a few minutes, is give you the ability to look at the cross-section of the reviews that are out there. And you're looking at the cross-section of one of our clients using myPracticeReputation. So it'll show you all the major review sites. It'll show you how many total reviews are on each site. And then because all the review sites use different scoring methodologies, some of them use 4 stars, some of them use 5, some of them use from poor to excellent. We break it all down for you in an A through F scoring mechanism. So how many, based on how that site ranks itself, we give it anywhere from an A through F, and then we give you an overall score that shows what your blended average is, and then we continue to work with you month after month to make sure that you have an A and that you keep an A. And so this allows you from any kind of gotchas. A lot of times, a lot of doctors become aware of review sites and reviews that have been written about them when patients come in and say, hey, doctor, do you realize what was said about you? Now that won't happen anymore because you'll use myPracticeReputation to be aware of that. And again, we now then are poised, because we're being proactive, to mitigate any potential negative reviews. Because right now, chances are there aren't that many reviews written about you just yet, but one negative review, when you only have like 5 or 6 or 12 online, that can have a huge impact in terms of the fact that that is the last review that's come up. You haven't received a review in several months, and so now that review is going to sit. It's the very first thing people are going to see. That's their first impression. But if you think about it, if you're being proactive and now you're receiving reviews every day, that even if a negative review does come up from time to time, and that's okay, that quickly that review will fall to the bottom of the page because we're going to have a new review that comes in tomorrow and the day after that and the week after that. And so that review will chronologically fall farther and farther down the page, and one negative review won't impact your average that much. If you only have 5 reviews and they're all 5, you all have 5 stars and one gives you a 1 star or no stars, that'll take you down from an A to a B immediately. But if you have 50, 60, 100 reviews and you get 1 negative review from time to time, won't have any impact really at all. And that's the thing, is that the patients, one of the things that we've taught at Practice Builders for a long time is patients don't have the means by which to judge when making their selection about who their provider is going to be. They don't have the training, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the skill for that. They simply can go by what they can read, what they can see, what they hear about. And that's how they're defining you. So people are making very serious healthcare decisions. We want to make sure that what is out there is for not only your own sake, but for patient's sake, so that they can make the best healthcare decision they can, that the information they're finding out about you is reflective of reality, that it is accurate, and that you can utilize these reviews to share and promote your practice. So our dashboard gives you the ability to see the reviews that are out there, and I'll show you this in a live example in just a second. You can see the reviews as they come in. You can and you can select those reviews for publication. Now let me just spend a second to explain what I mean by publishing reviews, because that isn't exactly understood by a lot of people. We're going to give you the ability to ask patients to write reviews, to bring those reviews in, and then be able to publish those reviews. And if you get a negative review, you now are able to resolve that. And when we're talking about publishing reviews, we're not just talking about anybody. We're talking about the system asks you to verify that the reviews that are written are actually your patients, and that the patients, and through the process that I'll show you in a second, they're able to give their consent. And the system ensures that only positive reviews are able to be published using this system. There's safeguards in place for you, for your staff and whatnot, so that that no one can abuse the system without your knowledge. So when reviews come in, you're able to pick and choose which ones you like. You simply select publish. You have the choice on each and every review. So here's an example. Here's a review that was written a few years ago. It's a 5-star review. It's a great review. All you have to do is hit the drop-down, select publish, and then this notice comes up. And this just reminds you ethically of what you're doing. So you certify that you provided the services that were described in the review. The patient wrote the review in their own words. You didn't tell them what to write. You did not pay or coerce the patient for the review. The patient authorizes the review for public viewing. So all your staff has to do is hit publish. So you have complete control over what happens with each and every review in the process. So in the publications, the publication is a process through myPracticeReputation. We actually have an algorithm that determines where each review should go. So each review will be published to no more than 3 different sites, and we give priority to where those reviews are needed the most. And then at the end of the day, you're able to see where the reviews are published. You're able to see the patient's name, the site that it was on, and the page that it was published on. And that's essentially, and it goes out again to those sites that are out there. And so without further ado, what I'd like to do at this point is be able to show you some examples of what's happening with these review sites. So let me just let me click through real quick, and what I'm going to do is show you a live example of how myPracticeReputation works. So I've got an account where we can log in and we can actually see this is someone who's just come on board with myPracticeReputation. We're able to log in, and so this is a multi-provider account. They have several doctors within the practice. So I'm going to log into Dr. Zong. And so what we're able to do, and again, I'll just show you a live example of where kind of their reputation at this point in time. Again, we've just gotten started. So they've got what is typical for some people is that they've got, and these folks are based in New York City, they've got different reviews across the board. They've got some reviews on RateMDs. They've got some reviews on Yelp. They've got some ratings on health grades. And so what we're able to do using myPracticeReputation is we're able to engage patients by sending them a simple email. So I'm going to do that for myself real quick. I'm just going to write a simple, I'm going to send myself an email just like you would any patient, and we're going to email that. And then I'm going to show you what is up on the other end of this. I'm going to, in just a second, is here is the email that your patient will receive. So it'll have your name, the name of your practice, and we would appreciate your feedback regarding your experience as a patient. So you're going to click here to complete the survey, and they're taken to a page. Again, this is how simple it is for the patient. We streamline exactly what it is we want them to. So I'm going to go in there and put in the day that I was seen. So let's just put in today. And then I'm going to take a review that I wrote just a few minutes ago, and I'm going to paste that in just like a patient would. And I'm going to put in the treatment that I'm seeing that patient for, so I can say HealSpur. And then we give the patients the choice on how they want their own name listed. So they can have the choice to make themselves anonymous, or they can list their full name. So in this case, I'll just put John M., and I hit Save and Proceed. Asks a couple of different questions. If I want to share my review on my own Google Plus or my own Facebook page, there are some additional questions that we can get from patients, but in the interest of time, I'm going to skip past that, and I'm also not going to create an account right now. So what happened is that the patients are filling out reviews. Let me log back in real quick. Patients fill out the reviews. It comes back in. Your staff gets notified when a new review comes into myPracticeReputation, and you will see that there is a new review. New review that comes in. Give me just a second. And so here's the review I just wrote. So now we know everything about the patient. We see the data was written, the story that was given, who the patient actually is, and how they want their own name listed. So here's the review as it's come through, and then you're given the ability to rank the review. And so they can rank the review according to how the quality of the review, and you can select the review for publication. So again, when you select the review for publication, this notice will come up, and we actually will publish the review. So when we publish the review, what myPracticeReputation does is it goes through and it determines where's the optimal place to put this review. So it looks at, and the software determines based on the review was written, the content that's in the review, how the review is, where your needs are. So the greater the need is for a given review site, the higher priority will be given to publishing the review on that site. And then we know the protocols for all these different review sites. So we know how many reviews each site will accept from you in a given period of time. We know which sites require the patients to interact versus we can work in concert and with the permission of the patient. There's a lot of things that go on. At the end of the day, our goal is to make sure that across the board that we've got A's up there and that we continually work to make sure that the practice is constantly up to date with being aware of where their reviews are, and making sure that new reviews are always coming through and that we're always staying on top of that. So a couple of questions I'd like you to consider when it comes to, what kind of impact can this have for your practice? There's a couple of things I'd like you to ask yourself and answer is, what would a prospective patient do after reading a false or a negative review about you that's online. So they go online and they don't know you, they don't know anything about you other than their name, and perhaps you were recommended by another provider or by another patient, or they just found you online, and they read something that's horribly negative about you. What will they do based on that? And a lot of times you say, well, they just wouldn't call me. And so the thing I want you to consider, and this is the hard cost of this, is how do you get a patient back that you never knew you lost, and what is a patient worth to you over their lifetime? And so what, at the end of the day, what is protecting you right this second from anybody writing anything they want about you? Well, chances are very likely that there is nothing preventing that right now. And so, I know that you work really hard. I know that you do a great job and that you save lives and you change lives and you change appearances and you do some miraculous things, but let's make sure that I can find out about that anybody can find out about that when they do a search for you. That is only fair to you and to your practice. And one of the best parts about my practice reputation is how simple it is for you to be involved in this. And so before we go through that, let me just show you a couple of examples of screenshots that are actually taken from some of the registrants from tonight's webinar. So this is an example. I showed you an example of someone who's just come on board with my practice reputation, but here's an example of someone who has a very active, that's never been proactive, but has been around and has many patients, and gives me a very skewed version of what's out there. I've got reviews from everything, a D that's on Google, to A's that are on Vitals, to C's that are on Wellness, and everything and anything in between. And so, again, this gives a very distorted version. It basically says, if I'm reading the reviews here, as I'll show you on this next one, essentially it's a crapshoot. So in here I've protected this particular doctor, but it says everything from, and again, these are real reviews written by real people. His bedside manner sucks. Everything from that, some very professional. I'm very happy with the doctor, very thorough, professional, incredibly rude and obnoxious. Again, you would think that this is a doctor, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde as far as this doctor is concerned. But the reality is that it's the furthest thing from the truth, because we're only, this doctor has 43 reviews. This doctor, probably just like you, has seen thousands of patients over his or her career. And so these very small number of reviews are not reflective. They're not statistically relevant. They're not reflective of reality. It is not, this is the best information that's out there for many patients to make their healthcare decision, and it's not very good information, is it? Especially if we've got reviews like this. That again, the problem with negative reviews from a patient's point of view is that we don't know whether it's true or not. It's just whether does it sound plausible. And the problem with negative reviews is when people write a negative review, and sometimes there's a kernel of truth. Honestly, if I'm reading this one, it's so bizarre, I don't even know. But they sound plausible. And this one actually sounds somewhat plausible. So it sounds like some off-the-cuff thing that is highly unprofessional that that doctor could say. And again, they're making a judgment based on a very skewed version of this. So you want to make sure that if this is the method that people are using to make their decision, and as we saw a minute ago, increasingly they are, we want to make sure that that's something that is more akin to reality, something that is reflective of the whole of your patient base, and where you should and rightfully have a say in what is shown about you online. Just like you're in control about what's being said about you on your own website, you should have a say in what's being said about you on these review sites as well. And so that being said, let me just kind of, the other thing I'd like you to consider is how many patients are you seeing per day? I want you to think about that. Is it 20? Is it 40? Is it 50? Is it 100? And if you ask all of those patients, or even half of those patients, to spend 2 minutes to share their experience, how many of them do you think would do that? And answers will come from everybody to half to a third. Even if it's a third, you're seeing 40 patients a day, and you get 20% of them to respond. That's 8 reviews every day 8 reviews over the course of a month are hundreds of reviews, many, many, many times more than what you're getting now. And so what would those hundreds of positive reviews mean to your practice? One of the other things that I just want to show you very briefly, I want to show you before and after of what happens with these review sites. So I want to show you an example of 2 different, I live in Austin, Texas. I want to show you the example of 2 different orthodontists, one that has a fantastic reputation, one that essentially has no reputation. And I want to show you what happens to them, and I want you to kind of place yourself, and actually I want you to Google yourself, and I want you to look at what comes up. And do you look like Dr. A here? And so this doctor is an orthodontist here in Austin. So if I do a Google search, this is what comes up. There are essentially no reviews or review sites. The website information or different things that have listed, and you'll just notice it's just a bunch of words. It's not a very interesting page. It doesn't really give me anything to bite off on. I can't really make, other than this paid ad for another orthodontist here in town, I really can't make any kind of determination about what anybody thinks about this doctor. But Doc B that comes is like night and day. So Dr. Koenig has a 29 out of 30, has 25 patients that have written reviews that I can immediately look at. And then as I scroll down the page, this is where he really shines. Look at how different, I mean, let's go back and forth. Boring, popping off the page. And this is what's so great about the review sites is the designation that Google gives them. Imagine what, just like you got graded in 3rd grade by your teacher gave you stars, Google gives you stars now. And so what would it mean to your practice to have your Google search look like this? I can help you make that happen. And really start to change the way that your practice operates, the way that your outreach to your patients. And that's essentially how myPracticeReputation works. We do provide a free online assessment for everyone that is attending the webinar today, and I do appreciate your time. This offer will expire on June 7th, and so you can, in the chat box right now, if you would, just put in your name and your information, and we will record that. If you have any questions, feel free to ask those as well. But we'll give you a free reputation assessment, and I'll not only do this, I'll set up a time with you, and it takes about 20 minutes or so, where we'll not only look at your reputation in depth, but we'll look at, just like we did with the others, we'll look at what's being said not only about you, but the other practitioners around you, your associates, your peers, your competitors, and say, what, if I was a patient today and I was looking up, other doctors that are of a similar specialty in your zip code, who would I pick and why? Again, it has nothing to do with clinical outcomes. It has nothing to do with quality of care. It has to do with the arbitrary musings of God knows whom. Let's make sure that what shows up about you is within your control so that you can create if you want a competitive advantage over the other providers, that's easy to do. If you want to make sure that you really, that the great stories that your patients have to share, you want to share that with other people, we can make that happen. If you want to make sure that you are better, that for search engine optimization, that you want to really control what happens when you type in your name, again, that's all of that together is what we're able to do for you. So now at this time, if there are any, Jillian, do we have any questions that have come up as a result of going through this?
Yes, we have had some come through, but what we'd like to do is actually use some of the questions that have come through today, along with some of the more popular questions that we've had on prior webinars, because they tend to overlap.
Sure, absolutely. Okay.
And I'd like to mention quickly before we enter this Q&A session, if we don't answer your questions specifically, I apologize, but we will contact you directly after this webinar to properly address your questions. So the first question, John, which of the review sites do I really need to worry about?
Okay, and that's a great question. And and let's go back. I'll tell you what. Let's go back to looking at what we were seeing just a second ago. We'll just use Dr. Koenig as an example. So some of you have never heard of Yelp before. It's the most popular review site in the world, but I don't expect you don't have to be on a first name basis with it. Your patients don't have to be on a first name basis with it. You don't have to know City Search. You don't have to know a lot of these review sites. What matters is that Google knows these review sites. And at the end of the day, Your patients might not be starting off on RateMDs or Vitals on Google or Yelp, but they are doing what I'm doing right now, which is doing a search review. And so if you have reviews about you, if you have profiles and you have reviews, they're going to appear. So because Google thinks they're important, and it's the information that's found, and there's visual clues to go read what's out there, the review sites that we publish to are the ones that Google has designated as being popular nationwide. They become popular for you once there are reviews on those sites. So I hope does that explain that things properly, Lillian?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
what can I do about reviews where I know or can even prove that the patients lied about my services or my care?
All right, so I can completely understand that. I can completely understand saying, you know what, I've seen these negative reviews. It's stuck in my craw. I can't stand this. It's driving me crazy, and I just want this to go away. Okay, I want to make sure that this negative review that's out there goes away, and I can completely understand this. But let me just I'll pick on Dr. Zong for just a second. And let's just look at his RateMD site. So I'm going to click through and actually go live to the site that's out there about him. And so you can see that there are reviews like these two that are here. And so, do not use this folk doctor. He did a horrible job. Wouldn't we love it if this never existed? Well, sure we would. But here's the thing to notice about this and about the review sites. Most of the reviews are listed chronologically. And so you're able to, as we're getting more and more reviews that come about the practice, those reviews will naturally fall down the page. So in time, if you're getting 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 reviews per week, this will fall so far down the page that no one will ever see them. Nobody expects you to be perfect, but we want to make sure that what shows up about you, again, reflects reality. We're talking about over the course of a year and a half, 1, 2, 3, 4 reviews, where in this time, I feel pretty confident saying that this doctor has seen a couple of thousand patients over this period of time. We have 4 reviews that have been written, 3 that are negative, 1 that is positive. And again, it's not reflective of anything, but we want to ensure that we're consistently feeding the review sites the patients that, the reviews from the patients that write what they write about you each and every day. So we don't need to, if our focus is on making reviews go away, then overwhelm them, mitigate them, bury them with positive reviews. And that's how you do it.
Okay, great. Next one would be, most of my patients are referred. Do I need such a solution?
Okay, well, I mean, and I want you to think about that for a second. That when a patient is referred to you, that other doctor is putting their reputation on the line to refer patients to you. They know what a great doctor you are. But think about it for a second. If a doctor refers a patient to you, and the patient then goes online and starts to do research. I mean, keep in mind, people are making healthcare decisions, and hopefully most of them do not take that lightly. The best research tool that we've ever had in our lifetimes, I mean, we have essentially the access to all information known through Google. And so it stands to reason that even a referred patient is going to want to make sure that you're in their network for insurance and that they can find out something about you. They're putting their trust in you, and they want to make sure that their doctor is giving them the best choice. So if they go online and they find reviews about you that are less than stellar, then if that might come back on the referring doctor. So it could embarrass the doctor if if the referring doctor was not aware of negative reviews that have been leveled against you. You may know them very well, but they can't speak, and so what can happen is if you're not being proactive about your reputation, you actually can do far more damage to your practice than someone that is not referral based. because now a negative review that gets back to the referring doctor can make them gun shy about referring you again. And so now they'll go, okay, I'm going to start doing my own research before I research. You know, I see practices all the time before they hire another partner, another practitioner. They're starting to do research saying, what's being said about you? And so even doctors are making decisions about who their partners are going to be, again, not based on quality of care, not based on you know, your effectiveness as a provider or as a doctor, but based on rumors and innuendo and what's showing up. So no matter what the referral source is, whether it's patient, whether it's marketing based, or especially if it's professional, because all of your eggs are in a far smaller basket, you've really got to make sure that when that doctor is referring a patient to you, that patient will do whatever they want. When they do their research, they need to have reinforcement for why that doctor referred you. So I hope that answers the question.
That makes perfect sense.
Good.
Before we actually go further, everyone, could you remember to type your name in the chat box if you are wanting to get the reputation
Absolutely, yes. Please type
done.
that in.
So last question is really regarding the filtering on Yelp, how these reviews will actually help or not help the filtering for Yelp.
Okay. All right. Great question. And let me explain. Let me just go through. I'll give you kind of the Reader's Digest version of Yelp and what we're talking about as far as filtering. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through and I'm going to show you the page for. I'm going to pick on NYC Foot Care here real quick, and I'll show you their page. So they've got a couple of different reviews that are here. And I might actually just, I'll tell you what, let me just do a little bit better example real quick. Let me type in plastic surgeon, and let's type in Manhattan, because we'll have lots of examples to choose from here. So let's just do a search real quick. And I'll show you what I mean by a filtered review. So I'm going to pick on, let's see, Dr. Perlman real quick. Let's see if Dr. Perlman has filtered reviews. Yeah, here we go. So Dr. Perlman has 2 reviews on Yelp, and just so you understand what Yelp is it's largely used by most people as an app on a smartphone, either on an Android phone or on an iPhone. It is the most popular review site in the world, where you can essentially you can drive down the street and you can see the reviews that are around you for businesses around you. You can go on, you can download Yelp on your phone, and you'll see if you have reviews about you. And what happens a lot of times with practices is that they might have some negative reviews, and they'll go and ask people to write reviews on their behalf. They'll ask the staff, they'll ask their family, their friends, they'll ask patients. And if those patients don't have experience with Yelp, a lot of times those reviews will get filtered. And the reason is simple. The only way that Yelp makes money is, and you can see it right here in the center of the screen, is advertising. So the doctor at Madison Plastic Surgery is paying on this page. Now, how does Yelp get me, or how does it get anybody to view this ad? Well, as you can see down here, you can see that Miss Fancy Pants has a couple of friends on Yelp and has written 13 reviews. You can also see that Rose has written 1 review. But when a patient, or when an individual has friends that are on Yelp and they write a review, those friends get notified about that review. And if you don't have any friends and you've never written a review before and you just created your account and it doesn't have a profile page on it, you're just on it for the very first time, there really isn't, and you write a review because for whoever asked you to, Yelp will look at that review and say, that doesn't help us sell any advertising. That's not a unique, compelling content. So what we're going to do is we're going to filter that review. And so what a filtered review is, and here I'll just use an example, is they make you go through a look. Let's see if I can type this correctly. OBWSN. I think I did that right. Nope, I didn't do it right. NTVISSU. Okay, so they'll go and this is a perfect example. Here's a review that was written in December of last year. Sarah, this is Sarah's very first review. Her review is written in December, and I'm going to bet money that if we go and look at when her profile was created, we can click through to Sarah, that we'll see that her account was created in December of last year. For some reason, it's not letting me click through, or it's not. Let me open up another tab. But again, if someone's just created an account on Yelp, then no, it's not letting me go through to her page. But it's not helping Yelp sell advertising, therefore it's filtered. So what we do, and actually one of the things that just occurred with the review that I published a few minutes ago, is I got another email that showed up, and it says, "Hey John, thanks for the review that you wrote about Dr. Zong a few minutes ago." And we actually encourage those patients who have written a positive review that you have selected for it to be published. We actually give them the opportunity to share that review. And so we actually have, we can actually go, and I'm logged into my Yelp account right now. I could actually copy the review that I already wrote. I can go to their Yelp page, again, the page that I was at just a minute ago. I can write the review, and we make it so simple for the patient to publish their review with relative ease. And now that review that I just wrote is actually, and I'll take it down in a few minutes because I'm obviously not a patient, but it makes it very simple to help identify those patients that do already have an account on Yelp, that already have accounts on Google, be able to share those reviews with relative ease without you having to do any extra work whatsoever. So, the long story short is that these sites are becoming more sophisticated in the way that they work, and we've become more sophisticated along with them on how we help you get reviews, and we're able to do that on a daily basis on both Google and on Yelp, and you just saw with your own 2 eyes that how simple it is for a patient to share their review. Anyway, that last question?
Yes, that was the last question.
Fantastic.
John, thank you so much again, and
Sure.
we'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today for our webinar about how myPracticeReputation can protect and promote you and your practice on an online scenario 24/7. Once again, a quick reminder before we end today's webinar, if you'd like to receive your complimentary online reputation, the deadline is June 7th. You can email mypr@practicebuilders.com or John as well. Please take a moment to visit us at practicebuilders.com or any of the social media networks you see here on Facebook, our blog, Twitter, LinkedIn, and of course Yelp. We'll be sending out copies of our webinar slides as well as the recorded version once this webinar has concluded. For any additional questions, please don't hesitate to contact John directly. His email is j_macumber@practicebuilders.com, or you can reach him at 1-800-679-1200. Your extension is 2024.